All right, welcome back to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I am Jason Green, bringing you new interviews. Right now on this channel, there's about 50 really cool rock and roll interviews, all kinds of other content, so you want to make sure you subscribe to see that. Now today, we're going to talk to Mark Boals. He's got so many projects that he can't even keep track of all of them, so we're going to try to get to as many as we can. Of course, he's got the new band Foundry, and they have singles out right now, and we're going to talk about that, as well as some other things he has. And of course, we're going to talk about YNGWIE MALMSTEEN in the past as well, and we're going to do all of that right after this. Just wanna waste some time with you. Sometimes it seems too good to be true. Nobody out there can waste time with that. All right, let's welcome Mark Boals. Hold on, we're going to find you, Mark. There we go.
I am. Cheers, everybody.
Cool. I'm glad you're here, Mark. It's fun. We've been trying to get this one going for a little while, so I'm glad we got it.
Cool. Yeah, it's good to be here, man.
Cool. So, okay, Mark, we got a lot to do in a short time, so let's go all the way back. Youngstown, Ohio is where you grew up.
Yes, it is.
And
Youngstown, the saying about Youngstown is you got to be tough. It was a tough town, and it was a big city when I grew up there. And now it's a ghost town.
Yeah, and you didn't, when you were growing up in Youngstown, you didn't take vocal lessons. You studied piano and bass. Is that right?
Yeah. I was really into, when I started with the bass, actually, I really got into jazz fusion. That's the first thing I was really interested in. I was always interested in singing, though. I mean, I started singing when I was 5. I started singing in church when I was 5. And I had a transistor radio to my ear the whole time I was in 1st and 2nd grade, singing along with the radio. And so I always knew I wanted to sing too, but I was really into jazz too. I was really conflicted with so many different styles of music that were going on back then. You could listen. When I was in 1st, 2nd grade, there was no FM radio. It was just AM. And AM played every kind of music that there was, at least where I grew up. So I got to hear everything, a little bit of everything.
I always wonder when I talk to guys who have such amazing voices like you do, how the hell do you realize that you can sing like that? You know, I sang along to the radio and it didn't sound like you. So how do you realize you have this great voice?
I don't know. I don't know. I just really thought I should be a singer since I was 5. My dad had a tape recorder, a reel-to-reel, and I recorded myself on there, and I thought it sounded passable. I thought my voice is a little too high because I was 5 years old. You know, I was trying to sound like Tom Jones and the guys on the radio that I liked, and didn't quite sound like that. But I thought I had something. I just really felt like I had something right from the beginning, and so I just wanted to keep doing it, and I knew that's what I wanted to do.
You were playing in bands at a young age around town, right? You started at probably cover band.
Yeah, I started in cover bands when I was 14. I snuck out I got the keys to my parents' car and drove to the gigs, carried my gear, snuck in the back door. You know, it was bars. The drinking age was 18 that time, but I was nowhere near looking like I was 18. But I was, I was a little crazy rocker, and I was kind of a novelty, I guess, to the guys that I was working with, and everybody humored me and let me, rock out.
Yeah, you were, and at a young age, you were probably less of a pain in the ass than other musicians who are already jaded and, been through the mill.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I definitely wasn't jaded. I was just excited to play music and learn everything I could. I thought it was just the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, and now, so jumping ahead, 1982, you end up playing with Savoy Brown. So how does that happen?
Well, actually, Kim Simmons, who started that band, he was the founding member, and there was a really lot of famous people who played in that band over the years, including the guys from Foghat were with him when they were really famous, and they split off and formed Foghat. Anyway, he was living in Ohio, and I was playing in bands around Cleveland, and I got connected to him through some Cleveland musicians, and I auditioned and started playing. We started playing the blues circuit, because it was a British blues band. So we were playing in Chicago a lot, Dallas, Texas a lot, in New York. We'd play Bottom Line in New York. We'd make the rounds, just all the cool blues places, and it was a really good experience.
Yeah, I mean, very cool. And so also around this time, you meet Ted Nugent.
Yeah, yeah. I met Ted Nugent through Sally Brown. He came out to one of our shows in Dallas, and apparently, Kim Simmons, the guitarist, he was very influential to a lot of guitar players, including Ted Nugent. And so we'd always have famous guys coming out to the shows. So Billy Gibbons would come out, and lots of different people. And Ted was one of them, and he decided that he needed me,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought that was pretty cool. So I took off with him. We did a tour. I was supposed to do an album with him, but it didn't work out because he switched labels. The label brought in a producer, and they brought in the guy Brian Howe, who ended up later being with Bad Company.
Right.
But that's a whole nother story. But I did tour with them. We toured all over Europe. We were opening for Judas Priest for quite a while. Did a whole tour with Judas Priest, and that was cool too. So I got my feet wet in the arena rock field that way.
Yeah, what a cool way to go from being a kid playing, sneaking into the back of the bar to opening for Judas Priest, and pretty big deals. Okay, so that's around 84. Now, 85, we'll get to Yngwie Malmsteen. So when I was a kid, Mark, there was always this debate about the Yngwie Malmsteen music videos, which I'm sure you've heard. Who sings what? I think I figured it out, but and you're the expert, so you'll help me. But before we get to that, so in 1985, the record "Marching Out" is released with Jeff Scott Soto as the singer. Jeff leaves the band, and they need a singer. Tell me about how you get involved.
Well, he actually left the band before the album came out, and I was supposed to re-record the vocals, but Yngwie's management at the time, they just cared about stealing as much money as they could, and they didn't really care about Yngwie or anybody else, and they didn't care who was in the video or who sang on the album, and they didn't want to spend any more money to have me do it, even though they promised that that's what was going to happen. And so I ended up on that. Well, I could tell you how I got with Yngwie anyway. I guess I should start off there. Because he just heard a demo. I got divorced in 84 and moved to LA with nothing. I was working at Taco Bell, and I met some people. I knew nobody. I started playing with some people and doing some demos, and Yngwie's manager ended up hearing a demo that I was on with Kerry Sharaf, who was a guy played on the first Billy Squier album. Really great guitar player. And Eric Singer played drums on it too, who's the drummer from Kiss, So it was a pretty good demo, and they just put me right in the band because he was slated for a big tour, and so I ended up doing the Marching Out tour. And before that, we did this stupid video with the Dragon, but with Jeff Scott Soto's voice, which was supposed to be replaced with my voice, but that didn't happen. So it was really frustrating, and for him and for me and for anybody who cared about it.
So let's hold on right there. So what we're talking about is the video "I'll See the Light Tonight." Jeff Scott Soto they wanted to hurry up and get this done. They have you sing to Jeff's voice for that video. Question that I wanted to ask you is, and I'm assuming what did Jeff? He had another project. What was the project that he left Yngwie for?
I don't know if I remember even now.
It obviously didn't work out.
I think it was something with Ainsley Dunbar. It was something to do with Ainsley Dunbar, but I'm not sure who else was involved in that. But anyway, it fell apart before the first gig I had to do with Yngwie, which was Oakland Stadium, by the way. Big festival day on the green with the Scorpions and Metallica and Y&T and etc. Rat. Anyway, he wanted to get back into the band, but Yngwie was mad at him, and he liked me, so he said no. So I did that whole tour. We opened for AC/DC. We did like 100 some shows with AC/DC that year, and then we went in the studio and did the Trilogy album right after that. So,
Trilogy is my favorite of the Yngwie records, and I think for a lot of people it is. I think either that's the first one they got into, or just it's a great album. And now there is a video you don't remember, I'll never forget, with you singing your own vocals this time.
It actually has my voice on the video too. Yes, amazing.
Yeah, and at the time, this classical heavy metal guitar player was still a little crazy of an idea, but people really dug it. As you know, Yngwie was building this pretty big following.
Yeah, yeah, he took his influences. No matter what he tells you, his main influences were Ritchie Blackmore and early John Roth. Those were the two big ones, and he took what they did and went a little bit farther with it, and he stuck with his own that thing, and he's never changed from that thing, be that for better or worse.
You're right. Well, he's always said that if I'm going to get successful on a mainstream level, it's going to be doing what I do, and I'm not changing that. I'm going to stick to the Yngwie formula. He produced that album and pretty much wrote. It says he wrote all the songs. How difficult is it working with him?
Well, first of all, he didn't produce it and he didn't write all the songs. But what else do you want to know?
Right. So well, let's start with the producing. Does somebody do the work and they put Yngwie's name on it?
Ricky Delana who's Eddie Delana, the engineer guy that worked with Michael Jackson and lots of famous people, did Thriller and all those things. He was the engineer with Quincy Jones. His brother's name is Ricky Delana. He's done a lot of famous records, but he actually produced the album. But everybody kind of let Yngwie think he was producing, but he wasn't even there for most of it. He was there for a lot of guitar solos, for two 24-track machines running all guitar solos on all the tracks.
Insane.
We had 3 machines tied together. And 2 of them were all guitar solos.
Incredible, yeah. So very Spinal Tap. So and then as far as the writing goes, did you write some of your own lyrics?
Yes, I did. Some of them he wrote. Some of them he came up with the title for the songs, and then he just said, "Yeah, just say something about that. Just do anything, whatever." And then he would leave, and come back and say, "You done yet?" And as far as the music, Jens Johansson wrote a lot of the music, the keyboardist, and he never got credit either. So there's still he still holds a lot of guile against Yngwie. At this point, after 30 some years, I don't give a shit anymore. But if anybody asks me, I have to tell them the truth,
Well, I think people like to hear these stories, especially when you read these things. I think this has come up a lot in the interview. I interview someone different every day, and songwriting comes up a lot. Dio would claim he wrote all his songs because he wrote the melody, and that's it. It's his song. And then I would ask the other guys, well, did he play guitar or did he really write the song? And Dee Snider, same thing. Well, I came up with the melody, I wrote the song. And then you have all these people who, well, I wrote this, I wrote that,
right.
It's an interesting thing. And to look back 30, like you said, 30 something years later. So you go out on the road for Trilogy, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We went out with AC/DC again. Yeah, we did. I think I quit almost at the end of that tour. I don't know how many shows. It was another 100 and some shows, full USA arena tour, every place possible. AC/DC's the most successful touring band ever. People know that or not, but they are. They've always been in the top 5 grossing bands, even up until now for tours. They really have a fine organization, and they're a nice bunch of guys. So anyway, I just got tired of not being paid, and the abuse, the mental, physical, and verbal abuse that was day in and day out, that everybody else couldn't stand either. And they've all said the same thing, all the other singers that have been in the band, and definitely all the crew people.
Now, is that from Yngwie or management or both?
Both. Well, the management wasn't paying anybody, but Yngwie didn't care. He didn't think anybody deserved to be paid except him. So, it really boils down to being his responsibility, but he wasn't in control of anything really.
Well, he put his name on every single aspect. You think at the very least he'd make sure his musicians were getting paid.
No, he didn't. He never felt that way. He never really felt that way. He felt like he knew the manager was ripping him off, and he always kept saying he wasn't getting paid, and so we shouldn't get paid, and blah blah blah. Even though we were getting $25,000 a week tour support from the label, plus there was, there was a huge record advance. It was a $6.8 million advance for 3 albums from Polygram, for starting with Trilogy. That all kind of just crumbled to nothing because of the management. The manager, from what I heard, stole $4 million right in the very beginning. So the second
Rough
manager,
thought.
yeah, the second manager was the manager from Cinderella. I don't recall his name now. But anyway, that's what I heard.
Yeah, so it obviously was pretty bad. You're touring arenas with AC/DC. You're on an album that's extremely successful. To walk away, and you probably saved yourself a lot of agony and misery by doing it. So, do you remember, how did you put in your resignation?
It was just one night where he was doing things like he was doing a lot of substances and drinking heavily all the time. And he would just walk off stage in the middle of the show. I mean, we only played 40 minutes anyway, but he would walk off after 10 minutes, say his guitar doesn't sound right. And he would stay off stage for 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes, and we come back on and then play a couple more songs. But he'd leave us all standing there on stage in an arena, not knowing what's going on. That was one of the, it was one of the things that I couldn't stand. And there was one on top of everything else that happened again after it had happened many, many times. I grabbed the mic stand, broke it in half, and walked off. And I said, "That's it."
So literally, at a gig was the end.
Yeah. It was just too much. I don't know. I would have done things differently now, probably. But being a young guy and just seeing so much crap, so much money flying around and none of it coming to me, for one thing. And, you have no idea the band, we traveled with the crew on the bus with the crew. We'd have like 13, 14 people on the bus, and Yngwie'd be flying first class every day, staying in first class hotels in the presidential suite. There just was no respect. I mean, I could take that now. I mean, I don't care. I like riding on the tour bus nowadays. I mean, I don't care. And I like the crew. I like hanging out with the crew guys better than the egotists anyway, the big egos.
I can imagine. Well,
but back then it seemed like, really oppressive and disrespectful. And
and doing something that's bringing you such grief, it's better to cut your losses. And you're not even profiting on it. So even more so, it's time to go. But so I want to wrap up the whole Yngwie section of your career so we could talk about other things. But so either you're a glutton for punishment or you believe that things had changed, because in 1996, almost 10 years later, Yngwie asked you to participate in an album. This is a covers album, and he has a lot of different people. Jeff Scott Soto's on this record as well. And so how does he get in touch with you, and why do you do it again?
Well, his management called me, and his manager by that time was actually the A&R guy from Polygram, who got fired from Polygram for signing him, was now his manager, Jim Lewis. And he said, he was going to fix everything. He was going to, make Yngwie a big success and blah, 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 blah. So I went there and I thought, after 10 years, he's got to be different. He's got to be grown up and cool now. And I got there, and the first 2 or 3 days, he was really cool and everything was nice. And we were friends and hanging out, and I recorded a few songs. And then by the end of the 4th day, I guess, it was just back to the same kind of attitude again. I guess he found out that I was getting paid to sing on the album. Or I had gotten paid. I think I got paid in advance, actually, before I even went there because of past experiences.
I would hope so. And so just to make matters even more ridiculous in your career with Yngwie Malmsteen, they Carry On My Wayward Son, the song by Kansas, is a cover. Jeff Scott Soto performs that song on the record, and they decide to make that the video. And who better to sing Jeff Scott Soto in a video? They make you do it again.
Yeah, how convenient is that? And besides that, I did record that vocal in Yngwie's studio, and it was supposed to be put on the video. I recorded the audio. I recorded all the tracks, the vocal tracks. Mm-hmm. This was after they had finished the album, and we were getting ready to tour. because the video didn't come out till like after the tour. I don't know. I don't remember exactly, but I ended up touring with them. We had the touring situation was better with that manager because people did get paid.
Right.
There was still lots of other crazy things going on, but we did it like a 6-month tour all over the world with Tommy Aldrich on drums, and it was a really good band.
Great lineup, yeah. So I can see dealing with a diva when you're getting paid. If he's off doing his thing and you just have to go on stage, you see him there, and you're making your money. I could see it being different, and also things have changed since the 80s, the way business is done. This is the record Alchemy from '99, and so he likes having you tour, obviously, and he asks you to make another record. So is the experience making this record different than Trilogy?
Yeah, it was pretty. We actually had a real producer, Chris Sangarides, produced it, and I don't think he got credit again, but he did a really good job. And we recorded it at Criteria, the old Criteria Atlantic studio down there, where famous for the Bee Gees and Aretha Franklin and everybody. So it was a nice studio experience, and actually got paid in advance. And I actually did, I did the whole tour, that whole tour also. And I actually got one of these from Japan for that tour, from Burn Magazine.
Hold on, let's take a look. Oh, how cool.
I got voted Vocalist of the Year for Burn Magazine.
That's a pretty big honor, yeah.
And we worked it out, so I didn't really have to see him except, on stage.
Mm-hmm.
We stayed we traveled separately. We stayed in different hotels, and I always had a separate room, separate dressing room, so I didn't have to see him. And then it was fine, because on stage it was mostly pretty good. As long as the music was going good and his guitar he thought his guitar sounded good, it was a good day.
Now so it's still working. That this is now 2000, I believe. And so you record this album. How's this one? How's the experience this time?
Well, this one kind of tanked a little bit because he fired Sangarides. We had no producer. Yngwie was doing everything, including mixing. Well, they brought in some people to mix, but we did it in his studio, in his personal studio, which didn't have Total Recall on the mixer. So the mixing guys would get a mix up and get it going, and then they'd go outside to have a cigarette or something, and Yngwie would come in and tweak everything and totally fuck up the mix. So there was 2 or 3 mixers that started and quit before the album was done. And that's probably the worst sounding album, I think. I don't know. I haven't heard all of his albums since then, but that's the worst sounding one that I've ever been on with him, production-wise, which is a shame. And I started to tour with him for that again, but then I started not getting paid again. And I went to him once, and he just laughed at me. He laughed at me, and that was it. I quit. It was in Japan. It was they were paying me in advance every week, and there was one show that was going into the next week. It was the last show in Japan, and he said, "I give you my word as a gentleman." He shook my hand. "I'll pay you tomorrow. Do the show." So I did the show. The next day he laughed at me. So that I quit.
Yeah. Now
and of course he told me, "No, you don't. You don't quit." And he didn't believe me. Then we were supposed to start a U.S. tour. The first show was in L.A., and they wondered why I didn't show up. I told them I wasn't going to show up, but I didn't show up. And so they went without a singer for a couple of shows. I think they were opening for Dio. And they ended up bringing in Jorn Land. Jorn is a great singer from Europe. And he did a few shows, not too many, maybe half a dozen or so. And he quit. He actually got in a fist fight with Yngwie and quit.
Yeah, he went the extra mile.
Yeah. Well, there's been a few musicians that have had fisticuffs with Yngwie, but I'm not one of them.
Yeah. Well, so there's a couple of things then about this. One, Yngwie now is the lead singer of his band. So here's the questions. Have you heard him sing?
Unfortunately, I can't unhear it. But I knew what his voice was like from before, because I think when we were recording Alchemy, he came to me and he said, "Man, I've been taking voice lessons for 8 years. And what's wrong? What am I doing wrong?" And I said, "Well, Yngwie, his voice, I mean, it just doesn't sound good. It doesn't have a good sound. It doesn't have a pleasing sound. He can sing notes, but they don't sound pleasing, you know." I don't know what to tell him, but that's the fact. I mean, he tries really hard. But you know, a singer is a totally different ball game than being a musician. You know, you can't just pick up a different. It's like a Dio model voice and put it on and sing like Dio, or put on an Ian Gillan voice and sing like Ian Gillan. You got to work with what you have. It's a physically limiting thing, and it's a talent. You know, just like playing guitar. I can't pick up a guitar and play like Yngwie. So I don't know why he thinks he should be able to just step up to a microphone and sing like me or anyone else. But
yeah, and these aren't easy vocals. These songs are, you know, from yourself and Jeff and everyone else who was involved. These are big power vocals, and it's not something that anyone can do. And I think his idea is, well, I won't have to fight with the singer anymore. I'll just do everything. But
yeah,
that might not be the best thing for the show.
I tend to agree with you, as well as a lot of other people do, but he doesn't see it that way. You know, he's been, I don't know how the guy could be so lucky. He's had some of the best singers around. I mean, he said Jeff Scott Soto is great. He had Joe Lynn Turner. He's I love Joe Lynn Turner.
Right.
He said Dougie White, another great singer. He said Ripper Owens, another guy from Ohio, is another great singer. And I think after that, the singing, he just stopped hiring singers after that, I guess.
Well, yeah. Well, so the next question, and is there any chance in hell you'd ever go back to Yngwie?
Well, I don't want to say there isn't any chance in hell, but it you know, I can say when hell freezes over, like the Eagles did.
Yeah. So
but
I mean,
it would require some differences in the way things are done. That's all. I always respected his talent, and I tried to get him to do things a little different, but he's a very stubborn guy, and he does what he wants. So I don't see it happening, because he would have to eat a lot of crow just for admitting that he needs a singer, because he is totally taking the position that he doesn't need a singer.
Yeah. And so, yeah. I mean, I doesn't seem like it'd be something that happens. It seems like he does think he can do it all alone. But, you know, listen, you left some great music with him, and part of an interest, you know, for the outsider, seeing it is great. We didn't have to live with the guy, you know, so we hear these songs and think, wow, how cool. So let's talk a little bit about some of your own career, because in 1998, you put out your first solo album, which is called Ignition. And we're going to link some of these things in the description below so people can, you know, see the different aspects of your career. So tell me what it's like to go out and do your first solo record.
Well, I was very lucky. I got Doug Aldrich, who's great to play guitar on it. And I had Chris, what's his name? He's a drummer with Foreigner now.
Yeah, Chris Frazier. He's great.
Chris Frazier, yeah, played drums. And Barry Dunaway, who was with Yngwie at the time too, playing bass.
Great lineup.
It was a really, really good band, yeah. And we played live. I recorded at Paramount Studio, and they still had the old Neve board in there. Sounded great. The drums were great. Everything sounded great. So I was really blessed by that whole experience. But that album was only released in Japan.
And that's wild. So if you wanted to get it, it's only available as an import. But you have 4 solo records. And so now, Mark, your career is tricky because there's all kinds of different things. So you have the solo records, then you have Ring of Fire.
Right.
So, and then you have a solo record called Ring of Fire. So
that was that was the origins of the band Ring of Fire. I got Tony McAlpine and Virgil Donati, 2 of the monster players in the world. Yes. And ended up turning that into a band. And Vitaly Kupri on keyboards too, who's been with TSO for about 10 years now. So, and yeah, this is a double album set, what you're showing now. The first album is solo stuff, select cuts from my solo albums, and the second CD is the best cuts from the Ring of Fire albums that I've done. So that's
this is a great place to start.
What's that?
This is a great place for somebody to start who's not as familiar with all the different things in your career, because you get a little of everything with this. And like you were about to say, this is fairly new, 2020.
Yes. Is it 20? I don't know what year it is anymore after the pandemic. I think, yeah, I was thinking it came out this year, but it was last year. It's kind of like a time warp for me in my mind.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, so this would be a pandemic, album that came out in that time. And so some things get lost in the shuffle, but other things people have time to brush up on music, and listen to some cool stuff. And so we'll link this below too. So this is, like I said, this has a little bit of everything for somebody who wants to catch up, because there are 4 solo records and there's a few of the Ring of Fire albums also. I want to talk about Foundry, because I live here in Vegas and I hear about Foundry, as you live in Vegas as well. I hear about Foundry all the time and I don't completely know enough about it. So Foundry's been around for a little while. So you explain to me the band.
Well, it's basically the founding member is Mark Bratton, the drummer, and it started out with me and him and Chris Iorio on guitar, and we've had a few different bass players. We have the new guy we have is Nico Gemini. I'm having a hard time with names tonight. But anyway, that's the current lineup of the band, and we've had 2 singles that have been broken the top 40. Just dipped the toe into the top 40, and we've been working with Colin Brattain, a producer that works with Papa Roach. He co-writes and produces all the Papa Roach stuff now, and they've had like several #1s. So he's great to work with, and we've been doing just a few shows here and there, mostly opening for bigger bands. And we actually next month we're doing a really big show here in Vegas, but I'm not allowed to say who the other band is yet. But it's a very, very well-known band.
Nice.
We're opening for and being associated with.
YNGWIE MALMSTEEN.
No, bigger than YNGWIE. Believe it or not, bigger than YNGWIE. Yeah.
But you guys, Foundry's sort of known here for supporting some really good acts. You guys have jumped on a lot of bills for a band that doesn't have a new album out. There's 4 singles that I know of that are in the process of coming out, and I'm assuming that the idea is that you'll put out an album when you have enough singles, right?
Yeah, that's the idea. I mean, that's the game that even the big bands are playing now. They usually put out a couple singles at least before they release an album. So it's so hard to break a new band now. We're trying, different things to get the music out there, and it's working out pretty good so far. But it's a tough game nowadays.
It's very tough, and that's the question that I ask most people who come on and have something new, because you could have the greatest album of all time, but how do we get people to know about it? Now, you're fortunate that you have a career that people are familiar with, but you guys, this band really knows how to hustle. I notice it, you're getting videos out, you're getting singles out, you're playing with known artists, and I think that that's a really good way, and taking your time with it rather than just slapping a record out. And let people hear these singles and see these videos, because they're very good. I listened to them last night, and I think that I think this is the way to go. I think we're kind of back to the 1950s where you put out singles first, and then maybe you put them out later.
Yeah. If one of them becomes a hit, that's great. I don't know. I don't know anymore. I'm still doing albums for myself. I'm working on another Ring of Fire album, which will come together later this year. And I'm working on another album with some Italian guys that I work with, great musicians. The guitar player from Labyrinth, the band Labyrinth.
Is that Shining Black?
Yeah, it's Shining Black. Is that? We put out an album last year, and that's going to come out before the Ring of Fire. So I'm working on both of those things right now, as well as Foundry. So. Well,
your career shows that obviously you're passionate about the music. This is, you obviously aren't looking for cash grabs. There's no way to do that. Like, you know, you're putting out music because you believe in the product you're putting out and staying active as well. You've also, you know, we glossed over a few things, but you played bass in Dokken for a little while, and I know you've done shows with Don.
Yes.
How does that happen?
Well, it started out. I started out doing, I guess, the background vocals on the Broken Bones album. He asked me to sing all the background vocals, and we got to know each other. I mean, over the years, I had met him, you know, hanging out in Hollywood and stuff, but I never really got to know him. And during that album, we hung out a lot and talked a lot and had a lot of laughs and stuff. He's a real funny guy. He's got a lot of stories. We always call him Uncle Don. Uncle Don, tell us a story. And he can go on for hours and hours and days and weeks with stories. But so I did all those background vocals. And he was doing some acoustic shows. He was going around doing his, which is kind of like a storyteller's thing, because he would talk most of the time and tell his stories, which the fans loved that. So yeah, we both go out with acoustic guitars and we played Dokken music. And then when the album came out, he decided he didn't want to work with the bass player he had anymore. And he said, "Hey, you play bass, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." "You want to play?" I said, "Yeah." So that was it. We started going out and doing shows, flying to Sweden Rock flying to Sweden for one day and flying right back. And it was mostly weekend stuff, flying out and flying back. A little bit hectic, but a lot of fun.
And I'm sure it really helps to have your voice there. You know, Don's voice is different, like most singers, you know, over the years. And Dokken, you know, Jeff Pilson could sing his ass off. So I'm sure it really helped to have you there singing those backups.
Yeah, he liked it. I could sing all the high stuff and tried to cover different parts, you know, when I could. So it was all good. Sure. It was a good experience. You know, that guitar player, John Levin's really great too. He's been with him for a long, long time now. And the drummer, Wild Mick, he's a really super funny guy and powerful drummer. And I've worked with some great drummers over the years. I've worked with Vinny Appice on albums and Virgil Donati, the Scientist. But Mick was just a bare bones, beat it out, like incredibly solid guy. But he's retired now.
Yeah, he is retired, and his brother is playing drums with the other guys.
That's his brother? I didn't know that.
Yeah, George Lynch calls him Mild Steve Brown.
Mild.
But yeah, he's the drummer in the End Machine, which is Jeff, George, and Robert. Right. I interviewed Robert the other day. He said while they were on the road with Lynch Mob, they found Mick Brown went missing, and they found him naked in a satellite dish on top of the hotel on the roof.
That sounds like Mick. Yeah.
Yeah. I said, "Who finds him?" He said, "We had a really good tour manager." I said, "That, you know, he should get a raise." But yeah, so I can only imagine how, you know, your Wild Mick dealings.
Well, we never had any wild things like that when I was with Dokken, but just before I started touring with him, he was playing with Ted Nugent, and apparently he got drunk and stole a golf cart and took off with two chicks, and he had a slow speed chase with police in the golf cart, which apparently, you know, you can't outrun a police car with a golf cart. But
no, he gave it. He gave it the college try.
Yeah, good guy though, really great guy.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to interview him. You know, he's retired from music, but maybe he'll tell some stories because I'm sure they're great.
Oh, he's got stories, yeah.
And then
go ahead.
And then you also did Dio Disciples.
Yes, I did.
Do you still do that, or that was just for a little while?
I haven't done it for a while now. I mean, Tim Ripper Owens was the main guy for that, and I was filling in for him because he decided he didn't want to do it for like a couple years. I know it was 2.5 or 3 years that I did it when he didn't want to do it, and then he came. They did the hologram thing. He wanted to come back and do it, so it's basically his baby.
Right.
I was just filling in for him, and it's a lot of fun though. It's great. Craig Goldie, the guitarist, is a great player and good guy to hang out with.
Yeah. Simon, right?
As the rest of the band. Simon. The drummers in that band would either be Simon or Vinny Appice. So
yeah, amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing guys. And so So I mean, you've definitely been around with these guys, and then you know, like I was saying also about being in Vegas, you did a few shows in Vegas. You did the Raiding the Rock Vault show.
Yeah, I did that for 5 years. Yeah, yeah, that was
Yeah,
good. That was Howard Leese was the music director for that, the guitarist from Heart, and he's been with Bad Company now for many, many years. Still with Bad Company.
yeah.
With Paul Rogers, so it's the real deal. And you know, we had Doug Aldrich in there, and Tracy Guns, and um, Jay Shellen on drums from Yes, the drummer from Yes, and all kinds of, and Hugh McDonald from
Bon Jovi.
From Bon Jovi. Yeah. So we had a few people in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. There's a lot of famous guys, and no egos actually. And we had 4 singers. We had Robin McCauley, great guy, Paul Shortino, Andrew Freeman, and myself.
Yeah.
We had
Was it? And then Blas from Slaughter also.
Oh yeah, Blas. Yeah, sorry, I forgot Blas. Blas is great. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Blas
so
became
really
the main drummer when Jay went out on tour with Yes.
Right.
So Blas came in and started playing regularly. So yeah.
And that show lasted longer than anybody I think could have guessed. You know, it survived different venues and different lineups and kept ticking. And maybe it took a pandemic to shut it down. You know.
Yeah.
But you then also did the show Tenors of Rock out here.
Yeah, those are great guys too. Unfortunately, the only thing that didn't fit was I'm not British or Australian. They're mostly guys from Wales. They're mostly Welsh. However, I do have some genetic Welsh in me. I just don't have the accent.
I think that people saw you with Yngwie and thought you had to be Swedish or, you know, some kind of European, you know, hearing these songs about the Queen in love and the Fury, you know, I think people must have thought that of you at some point.
Well, I was speaking Swedish for a while because the whole band was Swedish when I joined, and they didn't really speak English. So if I didn't learn the secret language, I was in trouble, you know.
Right. You had to teach them Youngstown and they teach you Swedish.
Yeah, I couldn't teach that. You can't teach a Swedish guy Youngstown. They don't get it.
Yeah, I
cool.
get it.
Swedish people are cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So Mark, we're gonna put in the description all the different things that people can check out. The Foundry website is easy. You can check out the videos. You can get updates. I believe May 1st. I think this is right. You have a live streaming show.
I don't think it's May 1st. I think it's later in May.
Okay, so I might
be wrong. Things change like that, and we have a meeting tomorrow. Maybe they're going to tell me about it tomorrow.
Well, then they'll go to the Foundry Music. They'll check it out, and we'll all find out together. And then obviously a big announcement. You're going to be opening for a big band here in Vegas, right?
Yes.
And that's exciting because it's been a long time since we've had any real live music.
Yeah. It's all coming though. I mean, the governor was on TV today, and everybody's expecting us to open up in June, which is only a little more than a month away. So,
yeah, that's what they're saying.
I really hope so.
Yeah, and it looks like we're heading that way. So we'll check out that. We'll check out your solo music. We're going to get ready for Shining Black. That's going to be later in the year, but we can get information on that. And I really appreciate you coming by and talking today. I know people enjoy these stories, and I know for you, some of these. You can only talk about them so much, but I'm really glad you told them again.
No problem. It's great talking to you, Jason, man.
Thanks, Mark. I look forward to seeing you.
Okay, you take care, man. Take care, brother. Bye.